Hello there, Misketeers. Welcome back to Missing Out Mondays, where we talk about what we're into. Start your week off right. I'm Tari J.
I am Lex Michael.
And today we're joined by Zach Wilson, who's going to be joining us on the main show tomorrow. Zach, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I feel like I need to respond in some weird cadence there.
Of course. That's the only way we expect you to talk. Zach, what are you into this week?
Oh, man. I just discovered that I mean, I knew it existed, but I hadn't watched it until somebody was like, you need to watch this. Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, The Show.
Yeah.
On BBC America. Just binged it to both seasons. So good.
It is very good.
It's so weird. It's one of the weirdest shows I've ever seen.
I have not seen it, and I'm I was listening to you guys banter a little bit about it before we jumped on mic, and I feel like I need to see it now because I was a big fan of the Douglas Adams novels when I was younger, and I just missed the show completely.
That was what happened. I was talking about Douglas Adams, and because I over the last 2 years, I finally went in and read all of the Hitchhiker's books. I'd listened to the radio plays and I'd seen the movie and everything, but I'd never read all of the books.
Have you seen the old BBC Hitchhiker series?
No, not yet. That's the last thing on my list of all versions of Hitchhiker's Guide to see. But I finally read the books, and then I wanted more because I was like, this is so much fun. And so I jumped over to Dirk Gently's, and I read the two novels for that. And I was talking about how I wanted more of Douglas Adams, but other than his Doctor Who serials and his the audiobooks that he did, or audio dramas he did for them, there's not a ton of other Douglas Adams stuff out there. And somebody was like, have you watched Dirk Gently yet? I forgot that they did that. Yeah. So I dove in, and it's so nuts. It's not how I pictured that character reading him.
Okay.
Which was interesting. It was it's not that it's no, it is. It's very different from how I pictured the character in my head. Yeah. But that doesn't make it bad. It's just a different choice.
Mm-hmm. The show version really feels 11th Doctor-ish.
Yes.
Which I wonder if that was a direct influence on him, because he's very what I would describe as whimsical, but you can tell that there's a little bit of darkness behind his eyes, and he kind of just swoops into these people's lives and tears them asunder.
When you say 11th Doctor, and again, this is a BBC America show, and it was started maybe 3 or 4 years ago. They were 100%. I have no doubt in my mind going into the development meeting, be like, this should be like Matt Smith.
Yeah.
It's a Max Landis joint, though, and I don't know if he's a Whovian.
No, but BBC, who is notorious for being overly controlling about their content, definitely went into this. We need this to be like Matt Smith.
Okay.
Because they would have just lost him to be Peter Capaldi, who the Dirk Gently in my head, much closer to Peter Capaldi if we're going to compare to doctors.
Yeah.
So I would actually maybe say, if of any of the modern Doctor Who's, it would probably be Eccleston. Might be the closest to how I pictured Dirk Gently in my head.
You know what? Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, I could totally. But BBC 100% sat down and was like, we need somebody like Matt Smith to play Dirk Gently and headline this thing, because now we don't have that guy. We have this old dude running around as Doctor Who. We need more. We need that young hip guy coming in. And here they brought in this guy who totally acts like Matt Smith. Is very, like you said, he's whimsical is the perfect way to describe him.
Yeah.
And then they put him in a yellow leather jacket.
Mm-hmm.
Weird showy clothing, and could have been Matt Smith's younger brother.
Right. I think the thing I like the most about it is that the mystery is very solid, and they do a good job of laying all the clues to make it make sense. And so you can literally track it as it's going, and you might be able to guess where how it all comes together, but there's still such a rich mystery there that going back and watching it a second time, you start to pick up on all the little things leading up to it.
Yeah, it never felt too much like it wasn't oh, it's a whodunit kind of thing, but it is a twisty serialized mystery show.
Right.
And even though it was different, like it's not the gruff Dirk Gently that I had in my head, but it totally works. And Elijah Wood is super fun, and it's just a fun show. It's a fun show. I wish they'd had a chance to wrap it up.
Yeah,
that was my only disappointment. Was like I didn't know how it went or like how many seasons they got. Like I was like, I'm pretty sure the show got canceled. Then got to the end of season 2. Clearly, they didn't know they were canceled when they made it. Which like that's always my wish for shows is like it sucks when stuff gets ended early, but I always just want like them to have a chance to wrap it up. Like I love that there has been a recent trend of like networks giving shows an episode, or like Netflix especially is like, here, do a movie, do a 2-hour special,
right,
to wrap up your storyline, because there's a lot of people that want it. We can't afford to give you a whole season. But I think it's Netflix's binge mentality that they want people to feel like they can watch a complete story on their network that has led them to do stuff like the Wachowskis show.
Was it Sense8?
Sense8. They didn't get another season, but they got a movie so they could wrap up all the stories.
Right.
So anyone new jumping in got the chance to just watch it straight through and feel like they finished a long, long, long ass movie.
Yeah.
So in the case of Dirk Gently, you said 2 seasons?
They did 2 seasons. The first one was 8 episodes. The second was 10.
Are they hour long or half hour?
Hour.
Okay. So that's not a massive commitment.
No, not at all.
I watched it a couple weeks.
I should get on this because I'm a big fan of the source material, and everybody I know that's watched it is real keen on it.
Yeah. Also, if you have a chance, when you finish watching, since you just finished watching it, the show Bible is available online. And it's very fun.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So I think I have a link to it, so I can send it to you.
If you'll excuse me.
Oh, Zach just left. Even before I sent him the content, he just
Thanks for having me, guys.
I'm
thanks,
still here.
thanks, Zach. Bye. Lex, what are you into this week?
So this week I watched a bunch of stuff, but one of the things that stuck out to me the most was the Netflix film Always Be My Maybe, starring Ali Wong and Randall Park.
Okay.
I am not a big rom-com guy. I feel, no disrespect to anybody who is. I know a lot of people work very hard on these movies. I'm not the target audience for most of them to begin with. It's the rare romantic comedy that I feel actually grabs me and makes me feel like I'm pulled into the story and I'm invested. And what got my attention initially was the involvement of those two. I've been a big Randall Park fan for a long time. He's, if you don't know the name, he's the dad on Fresh Off the Boat.
Yeah.
If you saw Ant-Man and the Wasp, he's Woo. He's the agent who's constantly harassing Scott, and Scott's got to bamboozle him at every turn. But I've been a fan of his for a while. Ali Wong is somebody that I discovered relatively recently, and I think she's hilarious. So I discovered the two of them wrote, produced, and star in this romantic comedy together. I said, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. And plot-wise, they're not necessarily reinventing the wheel. It's a story about, these two people who were into each other when they were younger. Years pass. She goes off to become a very successful chef. She's dating a super hot, pretty boy played by Daniel Day Kim. That relationship doesn't necessarily work out, and she ends up back in her hometown where Randall Park hasn't left. And it's about the two of them reconnecting and figuring out if they can, become more than just friends. Again, it's not reinventing the wheel story-wise.
Yeah.
But I find these two performers so ridiculously likable and so very funny and so very watchable together that it gets me through that in a way that I actually feel enthusiastic about. But there's an aspect of this movie that I feel warrants specific mention. And this isn't, at this point, I don't think you can consider this a spoiler because any conversation about this movie is, if not completely dominated by one aspect, is certainly weighted heavily in this direction. Keanu Reeves is in this film as himself. And there's a big chunk of the movie where, light spoilers, again, these clips are all over the internet now, where you discover that Ali Wong's character has met somebody at a successful function that she is responsible for and has started dating them. And it turns out that it is Keanu Reeves as himself. And I highly recommend... I recommend the movie in general, but if you're only looking to see the Keanu stuff, find these clips because it's two big sequences. It amounts to an extended cameo, but there's a ton of golden stuff in these sequences. Keanu Reeves' willingness to make fun of himself, I greatly admire.
We are experiencing some kind of Keanu like reversance.
It's
right
right,
now.
like between obviously like John Wick, like the third one doing much better than the first two and stuff, and now like he's popping up here, and now everybody's like, he did that interview, right, where he's talking about how he feels like he's a bit of a lonely guy, and then all of a sudden the entire internet is like, I will marry you, Keanu Reeves. Please accept my proposal. But
He's like, that's not what I meant.
but his willingness to make fun of himself, and the way that Ali Wong and Randall Park were able to utilize him within that story. Just for example, they're getting together. It's a double date at a restaurant, and Keanu Reeves asks the waiter, he specifically wants dishes that play with the concept of time, things like that. And when he picks up the tab for dinner, this exorbitant dinner tab, he basically comes back to the table and it's like, it's okay, I took care of it with my residuals from my hit film Speed. Things like that. It's the movie is a ton of fun. I feel like those actors, again, I'm big fans of both of them, and the charm and the chemistry and how funny they are, I think make the entire movie worth watching, even if you're not a rom-com person, as I'm not. But holy shit, the Keanu stuff, if the rest of it doesn't grab you, I cannot recommend those sections of the movie enough. But a lot of fun. It's on Netflix, so it's super accessible. I recommend it.
Nice.
The other place, did you see that Keanu Reeves is going to be in Cyberpunk 2077?
So people are messaging me about this, and I guess I'm supposed to be embarrassed. I barely understand that sentence.
New video game. They announced it last E3. They just showed the new trailer for this year's E3 yesterday, and it's just set in the future. And it's like what if you had a big world, like open world cyberpunk game?
Okay,
and then Keanu Reeves is in it now.
Interesting.
Like at the end of this like 4-minute like cinematic sequence in the trailer, it just like the character is like passed out, and then Keanu Reeves just walks up. It looks like exactly like him, and just lifts his sunglasses up. Hey, you need help?
And so nobody knew that Keanu Reeves was part of it?
No, big reveal.
Oh, that's wild. So it's okay. It's a big open world cyberpunk thing. I just read Neuromancer for the first time, so I feel like I'm now primed for exactly this.
It's like all augmented robotic like tech inside bodies.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
like
All right, I'm down. I'm gonna.
Sorry, I got real excited. I was like, "Oh yeah, I saw Keanu earlier."
But you're right, man. It's like he's everywhere all of a sudden.
Bill and Ted
again, 3. Right? Bill and Ted 3 is happening. I guess he never. It's not like Keanu ever went away.
No,
it just seems like Keanu was always here, and now he's really here. He's here harder than he was a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
and I think the biggest he's been since 1999
for sure. Like right around Matrix. Yeah.
I will still say though, his Constantine is still one of my favorite Keanu joints.
It took me a while to come around on it because I had the very shallow reaction of that. No disrespect to Keanu Reeves, but that is not what Constantine looks like. I reject it. And then I watched the movie. I was like, oh, this is actually a pretty great Constantine movie.
Yeah, I actually had no idea what Constantine was in terms of like comic books, and so I went in fresh because the trailers were like, what if there was a world that lived on top of your world? Ooh boy, what if the demons were part of your world? And I was like, oh damn, it's a guy who lives in the Exorcist.
But similar thing. It was just like angel and demon lore, starring Keanu Reeves. I'm in, right. And like I didn't really know Constantine at the time. Like I wasn't as big a comic book person when that movie came out as I am now.
Yeah.
Now I haven't seen it in a number of years, but now that I know the character more, I'm curious how I would read that movie.
It holds up, and also like it has a bunch of like the main Constantine characters in it, which I didn't know who they were at the time, but I was like, oh, Papa Midnight, oh, Chaz, oh man, it's good. And also like the scene, spoilers for Constantine 2005 movie, the scene with Lucifer is still the best scene in the movie.
I'm gonna rewatch it.
Yeah, dude, check it out. It's
I mean, I own fantastic. It on DVD. I don't have to go very far. I just haven't watched it in a long time.
Anyway, so that's what I'm into this week. I'm into Constantine. I checked out, speaking of demon and angel lore, I checked out Good Omens, the new. It's based off of, it's a book, right? From Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, and starring David Tennant and the guy who looks like Simon Pegg but is not Simon Pegg.
Michael Sheen.
Michael Sheen. No relation to Charlie or Martin.
Like Simon Pegg. What are you talking about?
I don't necessarily see it.
Well, open your eyes, guys, because they look similar. Like, especially now that they're both older gentlemen, they look very similar.
Older gentlemen.
Simon Pegg looks more like Louis C.K. than he does Michael Sheen.
I think you're focusing too much on the hair. You're like, gingers. No, they look alike. Google it. But Good Omens is really fun. It has very much that Terry Pratchett-esque. I was just talking about his style of writing, where he finds a way to talk about really mundane things in very fun, whimsical, kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it, just like supernatural ways. The show really captures that. And I also really like, I was trying to explain to my roommate the undertones of Sheen and Tennant's characters kind of being in a relationship, and they're very old friends, and that's how the whole thing. And I'm like, no, dude, they are fucking lovers. And apparently all of the fan fiction people agree with me. And I really like their relationship throughout the show, because it is about them trying to help each other out over the course. It's like a Romeo and Juliet kind of thing, like star-crossed friends, both on opposite sides, not supposed to talk to each other, but they've bonded over the course of all the millennia that the Earth has existed. And so it just kind of comes about that they are trying to help the people of Earth because they've spent so much time here that they've found a bond, but everyone in heaven and hell is so disconnected, and they just want their war, and they're trying to find another way, because humans are great. Well, humans aren't great, but the Earth has such delicious food.
Let me ask you, have you read the book?
I haven't.
Okay, because I've wanted to talk to somebody who just watched the show and hadn't read the book, because I read the book
a year
ago.
Yeah.
And then was like, there's a show that's coming out right away. This is perfect. So did you feel like it was rushed at all through the story?
I didn't. I felt the end kind of wrapped up a lot of stuff fairly quickly, which I imagine that's just how because they spent a lot of time at the beginning kind of just dancing around and first you're hanging out with this person, and then you're hanging out with this person, and really just doing a lot of the world building. And then around the end, all these pieces start to come together. And I feel like it was quick, but it was also how I would want my climax to go, where all of these disparate parts start just barreling towards the end, and then it resolves.
Cool.
You know?
Yeah. It was the thing, because I love the adaptation and I love the book. They cut out so many of the details.
Yeah.
From the book, just little things, and I'm like, you don't necessarily need that information to make the show work, but they clearly also referenced it,
right?
Adam's little gang. They explain why they're called the them,
right?
But they never explain. In the book, it's explained. In the show, they just mention that they're the them, and they never really say it again.
Got it.
But there's a whole other layer to it that informs stuff that happens later, and it's interesting to see the two perspectives on it, because it's good, but it's just there's more,
right?
And I'm curious if they're going to release an extended version at some point.
That'd be interesting. I do feel like there were some pieces that as you said, were referenced, and they seemed like they are important, but they just keep the story moving as they're going. And so so for example, there's a running bit about the angel losing his flaming sword. And everyone just keeps it's a running bit, because he gives it away. This happens in the first like 5 minutes, so I'm not really spoiling anything, but he gives it away. And everyone keeps being like, you lost your sword, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, it just kind of appears. And you're like, okay, all right, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, well, that to me that worked. That totally worked.
I mean, it worked. It's just like that. I feel like is one of those things where like it seems like there's a deeper lore attached to it, and like a reason why it ended up being there, and the like.
I don't want to give spoilers.
Yeah,
at this point. It's tough.
Do you understand what's happening, Lex?
Not at all. Am I outing myself as a hideous bitch if I confess to never having read any Terry Pratchett?
No, like 90% of his work is from one book series.
Got it. Because there are a lot of there are no casual Pratchett fans that I've encountered. They're all super intense about it.
Well, because like a lot of it, most of his books, from my understanding, at least, because I wanted to dive in more, but like most of his stuff is Discworld.
Yeah, most of it, if not like a tangent of it as well.
Yeah, and so like I haven't had a chance to dive into Discworld. Weirdly enough, book 1 is not available for audio on Audible.
Interesting.
They have like tons of Discworld books, but not book 1. So I was like, oh well, I guess I'm not starting this.
Maybe his last wish. He's like, they have to read my own words with their stupid eyes, and if they want to get into it, they got to read the first one with their own dumb brains, and then they can go.
Terry Pratchett's fictional will.
And there's a line underneath that says, "Make time, bitch."
He was such a good writer that he anticipated the audience response.
Mm-hmm.
I will say though, to your point about like the relationship between Crowley and Aziraphale.
Yeah.
I didn't read it as a romantic relationship or like a sexual relationship, at least.
Yeah.
Because they're angels and they don't have sexuality.
Right.
But to me, that's what really shined about that dynamic, is that they are such amazing friends that the relationship is so close that it feels like it's romantic, even though it's not. And that's sort of like the idea that like two guys can be that close. Like these two people can be so close of friends that they care for each other the way that most people would only connect to a married like couple of lovers.
Yeah.
But that's just like that's just not something that they do. They are that close despite the fact that they are just friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Redefine what you consider to be a friendship.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds really pretty, but there'll always be an ace romantic couple to me. So
fair enough.
Yeah. They will always be dudes who are madly in love with each other, who will go to the ends of the world because they are the greatest of romantic partners forever in the history of ever. And I'll count down the days until they give one big smooch. And they're like, we don't usually do sex stuff, but I'm going to smooch you on the smooch face. I'm going to smooch you in the smooch hole. Right, Lex?
I hope not.
Isn't that what our friendship is?
I hope not.
Who wants to smooch me in the smooch hole? Anyway,
I mean, no judgment. Like that's the thing. You do you. And, like everybody can be happy as long as everybody's in on it.
Yeah, totally.
No one else is in on it.
You can also just reject Tari.
Yeah, no,
Done.
I feel it.
Done.
I feel the rejection.
That is a perfectly acceptable response.
Yeah, and I accept your rejection.
Live your truth of rejecting Tari.
Keep your smooch hole to yourself. All right, guys. Let us know what you are into. You know where to do it. Missing Outcast on Twitter. It is Missing Outcast, MissingOutcast. And make sure to join us tomorrow. We're going to be talking about Clone High. Zach is a big fan. He thought he'd share it with us.
One of my favorite cartoons of all time.
Hell yeah. And it's hilarious. So make sure to tune in tomorrow and make sure to hit up Zach on all of the personal Twitters and Instagrams.
That's Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. THATZACHWILSON.
Nice. And if you're like looking for something else to listen to, you're like, I hate these missing out guys. Zach also has a really sweet podcast.
Yeah. It's called Ships in the Night. We take two characters from different fandoms and we write the fanfic live on the show. Like coming up with what's their meet cute? How does their relationship go? If it's appropriate, what's their sex life like?
Right.
And then just getting and like seeing how it would wind up. It's like me, my co-host Greg, and a guest every week. Both Tari and Lex have been there.
It's true.
And it got weird both times.
Oh yeah, it's a fun ride.
But yeah, check it out. We're on like pretty much every podcast platform: Stitcher, iTunes, Google, Spotify. I think that's all of them. Either way, just look for Ships in the Night.
Nice. Lex, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at @TheLexMichael.
Awesome. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at TariJ, TariJay. Don't you join us tomorrow, in which we will. Hey, can you get your face together?
I wasn't gonna say anything.
I can. Everyone can sense your incredibility. But they're still going to join us tomorrow for our great show talking about Clone High, despite Lex's incredibility. Until then, we will see you tomorrow. Bye. Do you think they can see me waving?
They can feel it.
Yeah.
Everybody can sense it. It's so powerful.